Okay, I think we're ready to start. So we'll ask people in the room to please stop talking um, for the present. And I'm reminding people in the room to please not talk any during the meeting because our system picks up any kinds of sound in the room. So you may be projecting whatever you think you're saying privately to the person next door to everybody on Zoom. And I have an echo, but I'm not sure why. I'm sure our tech people will figure this out. This is a Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association monthly meeting that we have the beginning of each month, every first Friday of the month. And we're delighted to have all of you here today. We have people on Zoom who are attending with us, and we have people, I think, tonight on YouTube. And then the recording of the meeting will occur on YouTube. So we're delighted to share information with you now or anytime later. I'm May Smith. I'm president of Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association. And tonight we have tech people helping us. So Jim Knoll and Terry Lappin and Susan Knoll are all helping us with technology tonight so that hopefully, everything will work really smoothly. And we got the echo for me removed already. So see, we're really on the ball tonight. Okay, our guest speaker for tonight is Vanessa Gressieux, who we're all very familiar with. And Vanessa is going to share some information with us tonight about the reopening of Kitt Peak to the public. So Vanessa, anytime you're ready.
Thank you so much. All right, perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Not too much, not too little, just right. Goldilocks, perfect. We like that. That's one of our favorites. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you all for coming out and enjoying your Friday night here in a room that I spent entirely a lot of time in my undergrad. You'd usually sit right up there and with lots of masks because that was the era in which I was attending school. So I'm very grateful to not be attending school any longer and now here at the front of the class, quite literally. So I just want to say a special thanks to the TAAA for inviting me to be your guest this evening. As a proud member, it is absolutely one of my favorite organizations to be a part of. And I do a lot in the Tucson community for astronomy. So again, I'm very grateful for all of you to be here and joining us on this Friday, whether you're virtual or you're here in person. So as a brief overview, I want to go into a speaker introduction. I'd like to talk about a brief history of the Kitt Peak and the Tohono O'odham language and how to pronounce some of the words correctly. We're going to go into a telescope breakdown and what they're doing, where we're at, and go into the visitor center and our outreach there. We're going to go, lastly, we'll be talking about the Tohono O'odham outreach that we do on the summit and then ways to get involved at Kitt Peak. So first, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. So Kitt Peak National Observatory is located in the Shuktuak district on the Tohono O'odham Nation. It's 54 miles southwest of Tucson, and it's located in the Quinlan Mountains, which are extremely sacred to the Tohono O'odham. It sits atop Yolgum Doag, which is the name for Kitt Peak, and is in the homeland of the Tohono O'odham. We are grateful to be hosted by the Tohono O'odham Nation, and we are very proud to continue to serve our community and outreach and our science endeavors. So once upon a time, I graduated college here at the University of Arizona. I'm very excited to be an alum here. Thank you over there. Okay. And I started in astronomy, astrobiology, and anthropology, and I wound up with communication and history. So I did pursue astronomy up until the bitter end, but decided to graduate a year earlier than to continue to pursue a research career when I knew that what I wanted to do was be up here and talking to all of you and being able to provide outreach opportunities to the community far and wide. So I'm very proud Wildcat down here. I'm also a solar system ambassador with NASA and JPL. So I'm one of 1,067 representatives here in the US, Guam, and Puerto Rico. And we have the ability to go out with a lot of materials provided by NASA and JPL to help support their endeavors on a community level too. So if you're interested in that program, please let me know. It's a very prestigious group. And we're always looking for really great people. So as a part of the Kitt Peak National Observatory overview, I do want to note that we have over 20 optical telescopes. We have 2 radio telescopes, and we have a very, very busy mountain. There's not a moment on the mountain that there's not some kind of activity happening, whether that be our really wonderful facilities management team that's getting everybody ready and set up for success, or our really wonderful kitchen staff, to our docents, our daytime docents, that are up there and getting up there early to be able to provide our daytime tours, or then transitioning into our nighttime tours. And then, of course, all of the research endeavors that are happening actively on Kitt Peak. So we're one of the only research facilities that you can come and enjoy day or night. A little bit about where we're situated. We're, like I mentioned, we're in the Quinlan Mountains, which are extremely sacred to the Tohono O'odham. And so that, Baba Kavari, is a very sacred peak. It hosts the Garden of Iatoy, which is Big Brother. And the name for Kitt Peak is Yolgam Doag. So it's kind of an inflexive word that you kind of have to do a little bit of a invert tongue to be able to get that Yolgam. So it's a little, there are a number of different dialects for the Tohono O'odham, and there are a number of ways to pronounce it, but that is the way that one of my dear friends showed me how to. So that's one I like the most. This is a picture of the original lease agreement that was signed in 1958. And it was really because of what really sealed the deal in this was that right over here at Stewart Observatory, they had a number of folks from the Tohono O'odham come and view through the 36-inch All-American telescope. They saw Saturn, and they saw a number of other amazing stellar objects, and that solidified in their minds that they would allow us to be the stewards of their sacred area. So it is not lost on the folks that work at Kitt Peak how very special and how very grateful we should be and are to be situated and working on Kitt Peak. Just a little bit more about the Tohono O'odham and where they're situated. So during the Gadsden Purchase, it separated the existing reservation to above that borderline between the US and Mexico. And so the folks that live on either side still have to navigate the US border. It is the second largest reservation parcel in the US, only second to the Diné or the Navajo that's in northern Arizona. So it's very important that we recognize all of the folks that are involved in the reservation and the surrounding areas. To talk a little bit, so kind of jumping into this, you may know that we had an extensive closure first by COVID and then by a fire. So this is a really new slide that I got yesterday. A lot of these slides I got from our recap meeting yesterday. So I'm very grateful for the very updated information, but this is to show you how very close this fire came to the observatory. And it was through the tremendous efforts of our facility management, through all the fire navigation and that we did not lose more structure or have more impact. So it's very important to know just how very close it was, and just through the tremendous amount of effort that we did not lose more. So we are at a place where there's still some instability on the property, but they are our infrastructure over holistically is actually very intact, and we're grateful for that too. A couple of other things that have been going on recently on Kitt Peak is that we've been doing an ADOT restoration. We've been working with them. By working, I mean we're just dealing with the traffic. But yes, so they did an intentional scaling project, which includes knocking down big boulders on purpose before they come down by accident. And so that was very helpful and has actually created a lot of peace of mind for the workers that traverse that road up and down every day, or as they need to. They are also installing new guardrails up and down the road, so that will improve our navigability on the mountain road as well. So I also do want to mention, if there are any questions, just feel free to like shout them out or like let me know, or all of that too. As a telescope overview, so I want to take a moment and just talk about some of the telescopes that you're able to visit. And there's one that we're going to talk about that you're not really able to visit, but their science is so phenomenal. I want to make sure we had it in this. So the 2.1 meter is coming back online soon. So this is a endeavor hosted through Caltech. And so what they're navigating and what they're looking for, mostly this is a very agile telescope in the sense that where it is reserved for being able to do very quick follow-up. So in case there's a supernova, so if we were very lucky and Betelgeuse decided to finally blow up, this telescope would likely be one of the first telescopes on it to do a follow-up and track it more. And it's made possible through our facilities management and the Caltech, which has a very small team coming out and getting this telescope back on the sky. So we're very eager for this. Another note about this telescope is that this telescope is very historically significant, but this is one of the telescopes that Vera C. Rubin that rings a bell, right? Yeah. Yeah. So Vera C. Rubin was able to use this telescope often. So we often talk about her when we're giving the tour during the day. So this is one of the telescopes you can come visit at Kitt Peak during the daytime. Now, the 4-meter Mayal telescope, it opened in 1973. There is a dedicated instrument on this called DESI, and we'll go into this, but I wanted to show off just how very magnificently beautiful this telescope is. So it's a battleship class telescope, so it can hold very heavy things, and it's one of, I believe, 1 or 2 telescopes that were under consideration for holding just the enormous weight of this instrument called DESI. And so it is a very, very large telescope, and it has a twin located in Cerro Tololo, which is in Chile, which is part of CTIO. So this beautiful, amazing photo is a rendering of the most complete 3D map of the expansion of the universe. And so when I first saw this image, it was during my interview process. And this image is the reason why I work at Kitt Peak today, because I knew in that moment, and the feeling that I had when I heard those words of what this represented so deeply struck me that I knew that I wanted to be in a place that was at the forefront of the type of research that they're doing every day and night at Kitt Peak. So I just take a moment and understand that this is one of the most holistic views of our expansion of our universe. And DESI does this all evening, every time, every night that there are clear skies. So it's a 5-year survey, I believe. It's either 5 or 10. So I will tell you right now, I'm not a complete expert on Kitt Peak. I'm 6 months into, like, almost today. So I've learned a lot more since the last time I presented on Kitt Peak, but it is a survey of some length. And it is very successful. So there's a saying that our director, Shell, says is that they're able to eat red shifts for breakfast because they're categorically sifting through all this data so quickly. So by the time that all the folks that are actually rendering this information, they're able to actually after a very long night of surveying, they have all the data that they need to go through by the time that they're eating breakfast. So it's very successful. It is an incredibly, what's the word? It's an incredibly amazing project in that sense. So talking about, and you can also visit the 4-meter Mayal telescope too. That's a part of our suite of tours that you can take if you go to Kitt Peak. The WIND telescope, something that really was a very special thing for the WIND telescope this summer is that during summer shutdown, we often, in astronomy, we often will take advantage and strip and re-illuminize or resilver or resurface our telescope mirror. So they took advantage of this closure, and they not only resilvered, re-illuminized the primary mirror and the secondary mirror on or mirror 3 on this. So you can see a really great picture of the little caravan that they had going up and down from the WIN to the 4-meter to use their illuminizing chamber. So it was very exciting for us on that day. And so this telescope features a device called NUID. And so that is the Tohono O'odham word for to see. And so they're really, NUID is designed to push the limits of how small can they go. They want to discover the smallest objects that they possibly can going around other suns, right? So the smallest that they've been able to detect so far is a super Earth, which is anywhere between 2 and 10 Earth masses. And so it's fairly incredible for being able to detect something that small in all the cosmic landscape. So they are on sky often, as often as they possibly can as well. And so that telescope is really interesting because it is the 4th cast mirror at the Richard F. Karras Mirror Lab, which is right down here. And it has actuators that have basically remained intact since the 90s and have continually performed. So it's one of the best integrated telescopes that I've ever got to interact with. It also is in that special cast honeycomb style that the Mirror Lab is so signaturely known for. And we can put an eyepiece on it, and it only takes about 5 minutes to change over. So it's one of my favorites on the summit. So don't tell the other telescopes. I don't want them to get super jealous. Going into, and the WIN, unfortunately, is not something that you would regularly visit on Kitt Peak, but I did want to mention their amazing science that they're working on. The McMath Pierce telescope is, it was at the time the 2nd largest telescope in the world. It is definitely a very formidable, very recognizable structure on top of Kitt Peak. So if anybody's ever gone to Mount Lemmon Sky Center, which is a part of the U of A, and you look that way to the west during the sunset, you can easily pick out the MMP from a distance. So here, I just wanted to mention this heliostat that's here. So the orientation of this entire structure is due north, right? So the telescope itself doesn't move, but the heliostats do. And so what's really wonderful about the heliostats and when they come back online is not only are we going to be able to view the sun, but we'll also be able to see the moon. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. I wanted to show off a really great part that we've done since maybe any of you have really been up there is introduce this science on a sphere. And so we're able to show data in a spherical form that otherwise it's just everything was kind of like 2D, right? Like this is 2D. We don't get a chance to really show off fit and form. I think one of the most brilliant applications of the science on the sphere is to be able to show the entire Milky Way at the same time. And then you start like kind of learning like where the large and small Magellanic Clouds are in relation to the Lagoon Nebula or something else that, you know, you really can kind of start mapping out and seeing that as a physical representation all at once, instead of just seeing half of the Milky Way and half of the Milky Way in China. There's no primer, and the science on a sphere allows us to have that primer that I believe really helps drive that science narrative home. So that's a part of the McMath Pierce telescope experience right now as we're transitioning into it being our visitor center on Kitt Peak. And so these are some artist renditions of what it will look like. As you can see in this area, we've got that solar or that lunar imager from the heliostat. So we'll have a live view of the sun or of the moon, depending on the type of programming that we're doing. You'll see that it's very sun-centric, as it should be. And you'll see that there's going to be a feature of all of the original instrumentation that is still in that building today as well. So if you haven't been, please come up because it's great. Even just as it is, it's still very interesting. I can't wait to see how it goes in the next 2 years when we're expecting completion on this. Hoping for completion, yes. So a couple of things about Kitt Peak National Observatory and the visitor center specifically. So our daytime tours and our evening tours are back to capacity, full capacity, as they were before the beginning of the pandemic. So often we're seeing selling out trends. We're kind of getting back into a more even flow. All of this, despite all the challenges that we've had, the resurgence of two very popular programs, which is the Magnificent Moon program for all you lunatics out there. And then I'm a self-admitted one. And the the Dark Sky Discovery program, where you spend a little bit more time with smaller groups, really just focusing on deep sky objects. In addition to the nightly observing program, which is kind of our bread and butter there. And so just for our introductory and beginner levels of astronomy, in addition to the overnight telescope observing program as well, where we get to host folks and you get to act as the astronomer overnight with a guide and your own telescope. And it's kind of that let's stay after the museum closes kind of feel. So, and that's wildly popular too. We only offer it like 10 nights a month. So if you're interested, let me know. We're also always looking for really great staff and docents as well, but I'll talk more about that. And what's really nice is that in the time that I've been here, we're really working hard on modernizing our systems in the visitor center specifically. So the current gift shop is working with a POS system that has been there for time immemorial. It might be as old as the lease signing. And while it works, we're very excited and eager to be able to bring in a more modern system so that it'll just be easier for our staff and our guests alike. In addition to for anybody that's interested in this level, we have a new ticketing system as well, which is also offering a really great amount of flexibility for our guests and our staff in addition. So very excited about modernizing all of our existing things. So I want to feature this photo from the top of our roll-off roof, very well named because the roof rolls off. So we're just wanting to make it very straightforward and to the point for the name of the telescope. So this is one of 3 of our dedicated outreach telescopes. This is a 20-inch telescope that's kind of nestled into a cute little alcove with a great view of the 4-meter. We have 2 other telescopes for our public outreach as well. We have the Little Dome or the Levine telescope, and we are commissioning a 0.6 meter telescope. That's 24 inches. It's a 0.6 meter telescope, and we're very excited about this endeavor. And it's one of our final pieces on making sure that all of our outreach is handled well. And that will be nestled in the visitor center telescope, that dome that's right next to the existing visitor center as it is. So after that, we will have our entire suite of outreach telescopes complete. So we're very hopeful. We've been working very closely with the original owner of the telescope to get this up and on the sky. So as a research grade telescope, I can assure you that there are a lot of wires, and just trying to get it integrated software-wise has been very exciting. So we're very pleased with this. I was very happy to be there that day. Transitioning into the other things that we do off the peak. So we took part of the Tohono O'odham parade for radio. And I think, if I remember rightly, I think we took 3rd in that category. Our director is the Rainbow. So they had a lot of fun with this project. And so if anybody is interested in going to a rodeo parade, let me know. because it was an absolute blast and I will not be missing it this year. Additionally, we also hosted the Tohono O'odham and Open Night. And so it was our first one for quite a long time because of the severity and the length of our extended closure. It was very well attended. There were over 750 members from the Tohono O'odham. It was an all hands on deck kind of day. I didn't work there yet, but I was tempted on going and helping. But I am looking forward to the next one that's going to be in 2026 or so. So I know that they space them out some, but just so you're interested, if you are interested, please let me know. I will transition into letting you know that we are always looking for great volunteers. I know that everyone here does a phenomenal job at showing up for things like you're doing right now. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But we're always looking for docents. So if you're interested in that, there's a QR code there. I'll tell you about it later if you'd like. And we're also looking for night guides as well. So we've got plenty to do on the mountain. And even though we're doing really well with our staffing, we are looking for other folks as well. So, and with that, I want to end with a picture of the comet that everyone, rightfully so, was in love with. And this was taken by Rob Sparks, one of our guides and one of the members of our communication, education, and engagement teams, who's a phenomenal astrophotographer who specializes in taking pictures like this. So with that, I will let you know that I, again, am just so very continually impressed with the Tucson community for just showing up. And we really could not be here or do what we do without support from folks like you. And again, on behalf of the entire team at the Visitor Center and at Kitt Peak, we're just grateful for you. So thank you very much, and I'll take questions.
So great. Do we have questions in the audience here? Okay, raise your hand and either myself or Jim Noel will get to you with a microphone.
Vanessa, thank you. That was a great presentation. I have a different interest in astronomy. Following the recent fires, has there been any significant change to the mitigation plan or protection for the mountain? I know thankfully there was minimal damage, but I'm sure that they want to avoid anything happening to the infrastructure of the telescopes.
Thank you. So the question was, are there mitigation? And that's a great point. I will do my best to answer that. So I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but the question was, are there mitigation plans in place to make sure that the severity of the fire that we experienced does not happen again, or is at least planned to not be as severe? So to give a little context for this fire, they were notified in the afternoon it was a later afternoon or later morning warning that this fire was occurring, and that not to worry about it. It was way out at Baba Kavari, which is not relatively that far from our peak, of course, but that by the evening time, it became very obvious that they needed to evacuate. So it was just a perfect storm of really bad situation that led to the severity and the length of that fire. So now I know that there are a number of things that are in place. I can't speak well to what they are, but I know that we're very fire sensitive on the mountain as it is. So even we had just even little skirt up that came up, I think maybe a month ago. And so everybody's just like holding their breath, trying to keep calm, but like knowing that our safety team had a dedicated plan really was great. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, Jim? Richard, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was talking to
Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Other major observatories really from
Question was, what observatories are under threat of fire? Yeah, I would say all of them to some regard are under threat of fire because that's just the nature where.
Yeah.
Me okay? Oh, it's coming in and out. It's fine.
I presume this is what happens when you build out of the city.
That's exactly right. The human encroachment into forested areas that kind of we're the ones that are the interferers in that natural track for the natural wildfire cycle. So all are, but I think that most observatories, I can speak for Mount Lemmon, I can speak for Kitt Peak, have these mitigation plans in place, reaction plan for clearing out areas, not deforesting, but thinning out things that are naturally going to tend to catch on fire more. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question.
Two questions. Sorry.
Here.
Do you know if, in response to the Kitt Peak fire, if any other observatories changed or updated their fire mitigation plans?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And the second one was, how many of the optics at Kitt Peak were manufactured here at the Mirror Lab?
One, and that's the wind telescope mirror. But thank you, that's great. A lot of these optics predate that method. Really quick for context for anyone that doesn't know the story of the Richard F. Karras Mirror Lab, is that phenomena that was actually under this scarf. Sorry, everybody. Is that in the 70s or so, Dr. Roger Angel wanted to try to kind of create a lighter weight mirror. And so through the innovations that the proof of concept, the multi-mirror telescope, the MMT, did with having a thin substrate on top and then having a fixed backing to it. It was they were a series of like old spy satellite telescopes that were supposed to go up into space because we want lightweight things to go into space. So that was the inspiration for that process, but and then most formally in 1985. A lot of the mirrors that are on the summit predate that time. So, and just as a quick aside, and I love mentioning this, the 36-inch All-American telescope that helped convince or helped the argument for the Tohono O'odham so graciously allowing us to be on their land for our endeavor for observing is still in use today. And that was made possible by the philanthropic donation of Lavinia Stewart, which we're standing in her building and we're looking at her building over here too, right? So it's still in use today as a part of Space Watch on Kitt Peak. So it's all we're better and stronger together. So I just wanted to, before I forgot that thing. So thank you for giving me a moment to remember that and share that too. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Hi.
Let's see, what was I gonna, now I've lost my train of thought here with all that. I got two questions.
Sure.
First of all, where was the 4-meter mirror made? Do you have any idea?
Oh, the 4-meter mirror?
Uh-huh. I thought that was made here.
I don't believe so, but I did learn something. I don't know the exact answer to that. So thank you for giving me something to look up later. Like I said, I'm not an expert yet, but I will be. But I did learn that it's not a parabolic shape. And I didn't realize that it's
it's hyperbolic.
Yeah, it's a hyperparabola.
And it's what it is. I understand that.
Yeah, it's
when
an
it's paired
hourglass
with
that fans out and it has two different sets of foci, which I didn't realize could be applied in such a large telescope mirror. So that's very interesting to me. And I wrote to Dick Joyce, who is one of our leads and my lead person on that, to get more information, but he's on vacation. So he's going to give me that information later, but let's get online for that.
But it's actually a Ritchie Chrétien design.
Exactly.
I understand when it's used, but also they use it, it can be used for prime focus. I've seen photographs taken with it. And then I guess it has a corrector system for that. So it'll work with that hyperbolic mirror.
It's so interesting. It didn't even occur to me that the application could be in such a large format. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
It's been used both ways, and I've seen photographs taken with it. Now, my other question is that visitor center from the McNath Solar Telescope, is that a separate visitor center, or is that the same general visitor center and they're feeding the image into that somehow, because it's a bit of a distance from that, the general visitor center is a bit of a distance from that solar telescope, which is on the far south end of the mountain there.
Yeah, well, it's on the one of the most eastern parts of the mountain, yes. But yes, the idea is that because it is a larger facility, it's more modern, that will be adopted into being the wider accepted visitor center, but also like an education center. So the visitor center as it stands right now, don't worry, everybody, don't panic, will still exist. But we'll use that more of a landing pad and not so much of our classroom experience.
Oh, you mean they're going to move the whole visitor center otherwise?
Parts of it. Yes, I'm only a baby manager there. I'm not privy to all the information yet in planning, but that's the vision I believe is shared. It's you have to come see it.
Yes.
You'll love it.
I haven't been there in several years.
Yeah. Well, I suspect that many people haven't been there in several years since we've only been open for a year, but yes.
Oh, okay.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you have something?
Another comment or question?
Yeah. We have a question up here.
Yeah.
And thank you. I did put some plants in the audience. I said, please bail me out if I'm saying crazy stuff.
And
So, thank you. So the primary mirror weighs 33,000 pounds. That's very heavy, in case anyone was wondering. And it was made by GE Motors. No. Yeah, General Electric out of New York. Yeah, so not Corning. That's also New York based. Okay, this is great. And so this is the goodwill of my docents on display right here to help me. So thank you so much for being my backup. I love that. Thank you. Do we have other questions?
Okay, no other questions apparently in the audience. Shout out if we've missed you. No, okay.
Is there anything
So-
in the chat?
Pardon?
Okay, great. Thank you. We didn't forget about you folks out there. We didn't, I promise.
Yes, we're coming. We're just got the people in the room first, and it gives people online more of a chance to type in questions if we do it that way.
I was just going to comment that according to Wikipedia, the Mail telescope was ground at the
Oh, is it the
opticals.
upside?
Yeah, well, no, it says Kitt Peak
At Kitt Peak?
Observatory. Yeah, at the Kitt Peak Optical Lab. So across
Oh,
the
so that's
street.
like right across the street.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes a
That's
lot
what
of
it
sense.
says here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's very big, so. Yeah, we have a long history of optics here at the U of A, so I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah, Paul, if
Yeah.
you want to say something, I need to come up with the mic. So just hold on a second and I'll get you here.
But thank you for looking that up.
Yeah, if you go out there across the street here, you can see a testing tower and I think it's still there, but that's where they used it. They put the mirror on the bottom. They tested it. They found that it was a lot simpler to just leave the mirror on its side rather than to have to stand it up, vertically and, a traditional testing configuration. It's a lot easier to just build a big tower on top of it. But yes, that's right. It was made here. That's right. They had maybe the blank must have been made in New York or by General Electric, but the actual optical fabrication took place right across the street from here.
But the casting probably happened at the facility. Yeah. That's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other comments here? We have one more, Charles. Okay.
It's so like, yeah.
I'll meet you halfway. I believe the testing tower, no testing during ball games, too much vibration.
Air lab is 100% independent of the actual building itself for that very reason, for vibrations. That's right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the in-person audience? Okay, so we'll switch over to Zoom. Jim, do you need this microphone? Just hold on a second, everyone. We've got microphone issues for a moment here.
We're really
Test 1, 2. Okay, I brought up the chat in the room here just because Matthew Oda shared some pictures of Kitt Peak back in the day. So if you want to check up there, you'll see looks like Kitt Peak in '99 and the Mail Telescope from 1999.
Thank you, Matthew. It's great.
Yeah, here's some more from 1999. 2.1 meter down here.
That sign is still there,
All
just a little older.
right, here's the first question. Are there any opportunities for amateur astronomers to view the skies with their own telescopes?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, considering we are closed after 4 o'clock to the public for free visitation, it's not something that folks can just go up and do unless you are part of the tour. But I assure you the tour is really worth it. And so since you have somebody on the inside, I'm sure I can make it happen. So if you wanted to bring your telescope up, if it was a reasonable size, we'd be happy to host you, as long as you're on a tour.
All right, and let's see, Doug Nelson just made a comment, great presentation. Wish that I was down in Arizona for the
We wish you
winter.
were too.
Another picture from Matthew from 1999. Thomas asks, let's see, amateur outreach has traditional focused on showing objects through an eyepiece. Smart telescopes are changing that, and outreach now includes showing objects on screens. Will the Kitt Peak program transition to more showing objects on screen?
That is a great question. And so I will say that as an astronomer myself, I personally have a great deal and emphasis on having people have their eye to an eyepiece so their brain can absorb those fresh photons, and you can help have a person to interpret what's going on and being able to walk through those processes of how far those photons traveled and how lucky we are to even be able to know what we're looking at, and just think about the significance of us being able to look at these objects. But in the spirit of having a lot more flexibility and having accessibility at the forefront of a lot of our decisions, I think that we will continue to have a traditionalist view subsidize or also impair and complement with access to screens. So we are imaging on a nightly basis with one of our sea stars. Everybody familiar with that? It's an amazing asset. It costs around $500. They just came out with a newer version. And so we're able to also supplement our offerings on the Peak by having a database of all the images that we're collating through the sea star in that endeavor. So that's a great question. We want to remain traditionalist as far as eye as the eyepiece, but also make sure that we're offering as much accessibility as possible. That's a great question. Thank you.
All right, Matthew asks, what is the altitude of Kitt Peak Observatory?
It is just shy of 7,000 feet. So it's still cold up there. So if you're asking me, actually, if you need to wear a coat up there, the answer is resoundingly yes. Don't mess around with that cold.
Or bring your insulated coveralls.
That's exactly right.
All right, Matthew also says, I was a telescope operator at Mount Wilson Observatory from 2002 to 2004 at the Telescopes in Education 24-inch telescope. Our telescope had a CCD camera in primary and secondary schools in the USA, Australia, and Japan used the telescope remotely for educational purposes. Will your outreach program allow for teachers and student in elementary schools and high schools to operate the telescope and take images remotely? The program was a great success and only ended after NASA withdrew funding in 2004.
Thank you for the context. I really do appreciate the background on that question. There are talks of doing a remote astrophotography and doing remote viewing and bringing in a very popular program that I started at the UA Sky Center as far as our remote astro star party. So we would have folks that would log in from, we'd have 6 different groups. We'd have a Zoom call. We'd have a camera, a CCD camera. We'd be capturing images for 30 seconds or so, and then be able to talk about those images with folks and provide that level of accessibility without having to traverse the mountain. So that's a great point. I'm not sure if there's plans on integrating that into a education format, but I can't see why it wouldn't be possible, especially since you've already done it. So thank you.
All right, and then the last question that John Kalis asked is the picnic area still open? And for context, we used to go up there annually with Dean Kettleson. And I think that was done, isn't the picnic area down a little bit lower? So is it open to the public, or do you still have to be invited or know somebody?
So, well, that's all of that is true. So the picnic area is not open currently because it was one of the areas that was affected by the fire. So they are looking at the different applications and what it will take to have it be reopened. So unfortunately, the picnic area is not open currently, but I know that there is a core of people that would really like to see it reopened, and not just you. So we are working on it, but it is a slow process in that sense. We want to make sure that we're doing things right. Our infrastructure was tremendously impacted by our extended closure and the fire. So we're really trying to slow things down and make sure that things are done right the first time. So we appreciate your patience in our resurging efforts. So.
Okay. So do we have other questions?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Just a second. We've got one upstairs here, and it will take me a minute to get there. Oh,
So you had mentioned that you were planning on using the C-Star to collate images that you could then share through the public. Has there been any consideration for extending the image collection out to those taken by amateur astronomers, both within and throughout the Tucson area?
No, but it's something we can talk about if something you're interested in. Yeah.
Mostly just general. I mean, there's a lot of people.
We usually, so the format of it is that, and that's a great question, so don't get me wrong, but I would say that the formatting is that it's more of a keepsake for the folks that attended that evening. So they have that experience, like being a part of making that image in the first place. So, but we're always looking for great, brilliant, upcoming astrophotographers too. So I have a card here. Don't leave without one. Okay. Thank you.
great. So I think we're to the end of questions unless I hear anything else. So Vanessa, wait, Jim's got another one. We're just not going to let you go, Vanessa.
I'm fine with it. Actually, this is one of my favorite rooms on the whole campus.
Mark Savans asked, can we see which telescopes will be available on a given night for the overnight program? Can we bring our own eyepieces?
I've never had anyone ask me in all the time I've worked in astronomy if they can bring their own eyepieces. So are they formatable for the ones that we have? Are they 2-inch? Maybe he'll be able to respond.
Yeah, Mark, if you can answer that. He said yes.
He said yes. All right,
Yeah.
let's talk. I got a card. You got my info. It's on the thing. Ask me for my email. Let's talk. But yes. What was the other part of the question?
There's another one here that just which telescopes would be available on any given night?
Yeah, so it depends on what we're doing. So we, as a person that's on the overnight experience, you'd be able to experience either the Levine, the 0.6 meter, which is not quite commissioned yet, or the roll-off roof. So we got a 20, 20, and a 24-inch. So no matter what, you're going to have a lot of light capturing or light capturing ability. So the evening is pretty great. It really depends if you're traditionalist or if you want to image though too. So
Okay, and one more, Amanda asked, which tour would you recommend taking for a first-time visitor?
if I had to pick one, I think to get, no, I'm not going to pick any of them. All of them, just come up for the day. So yeah, we could start at 10 o'clock. You'll have your adventure all the way through the evening. We have food up there. We have a saying on the mountain that a bad time on the mountain or a bad day on the mountain is still better than any good day here in the Tucson Valley. So it's always an adventure up there. Every day is different. And I really admire the people that I work with and the people that I have the humble ability to support. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that group. So come up and enjoy any part of the day. You will not be disappointed. And if you are, you know who to talk to now. So. Sure, I will. Yeah, and I will just really quickly, in case you guys, for any further questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm probably ridiculously responsive on my email. So please feel free to email me any other questions, inquiries, comments, complaints, anything that you'd like. Or if you're going to come to the Grand Canyon Star Party, which I have a countdown for, I can tell you. I just want to leave a quick plug for the Grand Canyon Star Party, just in case. This is how serious I am about it. And I'm so grateful to May and all of TAAA for being the gracious hosts for this. But the Grand Canyon Star Party is only, oh, thank goodness, we're under 200 days now. It's 195 days away, everyone. So if you're going to the Grand Canyon Star Party, come see us at the back porch on number 32. Anyway, it's an inside joke. If you know, you know. And if you don't, then find out. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and just allowing me to be here to dribble on. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And, I'm sure you'll probably be hearing from some people now who now have your email. And if anybody doesn't, you can email me at smith@arizona.edu, and I'll be glad to forward your question to Vanessa. So we will take care of that then. Thank you. And just as an aside, one of the things that we always need to be thankful for is our firefighters and how diligent our firefighters are. And it happened that one of the firefighters in the Kitt Peak Fire was one of our TAAA members who was really instrumental in helping choose which buildings to save, because the firefighters have to decide where they're going to fight the fire most and what's the most precious things to decide. So the firefighters on Kitt Peak, it's my understanding, made a decision that the most important buildings to save on Kitt Peak were all of those that held telescopes. And they managed to do that. There were 4 buildings burned on Kitt Peak in that fire, and not a one of them had a telescope in it. And part of that, the thankfulness for that we owe to our firefighters and how diligent they are in trying to make good decisions in what they're doing in situations that are kind of often not compatible for those decisions, and they have to work extra hard to have things work out. So we're very appreciative, and if anybody runs into firefighters, please make sure that you express your thanks to them for all that they do to help us all and to try to support all of the things that are important to us. So, okay, I think now we're ready to say goodbye, perhaps to our online visitors for the night. Oh, yes, we can do Eric first. Great. Eric Kokoschka here, Dr. Kokoschka is here tonight, and he's going to give his monthly planet report for us. I didn't see you, Eric, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
The planets are really well positioned for evening viewing this month. Although pretty much all are quite bright. The brightest, of course, is Venus. It sets around 8:30, but by the end of the month, it's 9 o'clock. And since it's getting dark so early, it's really visible for over 3 hours. And the greatest elongation will be soon in early January. And so it means it's the angle from the sun is the maximum, pretty close to the maximum right now. And it's very high at sunset. And by the end of the month, it's almost half illuminated in a telescope. So will be then a good sight. And then a little further up, well, one thing about Venus, usually people say when Venus is an evening star, you can see it in the west, but that's not quite true right now because it's more in the south than in the west, somewhat south-southwest also when the sun sets. And that's because it's setting, the sun is setting so early and Venus so late that it's not too far from the southern point, and it's more like in the south and in the west. Then next up is Saturn, and that's transiting at dusk. And the rings just were the furthest open that they are in this opposition period in November. And so now they are closing, and that's the final closing of the rings of the site that we see now, because in March, the Earth will go on the other side of the ring plane, and then we'll see it from the other side for the next 15 years. Further to the east is Jupiter on the 7th. That's tomorrow. It's in opposition, so it rises exactly at sunset. And it's the brightest, magnitude minus 2.8. It's the largest diameter, 48 arc seconds. And it's wandering in Taurus, getting closer to Aldebaran again. So it's retrograde motion. And then also towards the Pleiades. Also, it's still reasonably far from them. Interesting event is on the 15th, so in about a week or so, from 7 to 10 p.m. because Ganymede, the largest satellite, will cross the disk, and the shadow will come right behind it. The satellite and shadow will be very close to each other because at opposition, the sun is almost directly behind us. And you can watch that for 3 hours all evening, moving over the disk. Because it's the largest satellite, it's really very obvious, even a very small telescope. And then because the orbital period is 7 days, it appears again on the 22nd, but at that time it's after 10 p.m. So then Mars is really not too far from Jupiter, and it's just about 30 degrees further east. Its opposition will be January 15th. So by the end of the month, it's pretty much about as close as it can get to Earth during this year. Magnitude minus 1.2, so about as bright as the brightest star, Sirius. And the diameter is now 14 arc seconds. That's pretty much the largest for this time. In August oppositions, it can get much bigger because then it can get closer. But on the other hand, Mars transits right high, and you have a long night to view it and see it rotating in a telescope. It's today also, it's stationary and goes retrograde, and it's stationary right only 2 degrees from the Beehive cluster. So in binoculars, you can see Jupiter, and then you'll see the Beehive cluster, I think, just below it. And so Mars is moving back towards Pollux, where it came from the last 2 months. The 2 far planets, Uranus and Neptune, they are in between Jupiter and Saturn. Neptune is closer to Saturn and Uranus closer to Jupiter. Uranus was in opposition on the 16th of November, so just 2 weeks ago, so maybe 3. And it means it's really well visible all night. And it's near the Pleiades, about 5 or 6 degrees south of them. And so all those 6 planets are in the evening sky, but Mercury, the closest one, is in the morning sky this month. Right now, not yet visible, but on the 12th, in 5 days, it will be visible until February 6 to 8 a.m., 6 to 7 a.m. in the morning in the southeast, and best around the 24th, so around Christmas. And this is really the best visibility that Mercury can get from Tucson, from our latitude. So it's easily visible and it rises even just before astronomical twilight. It's also above Antares, but you cannot confuse it because Antares is fainter and it's further down and it's not that obvious. There's one minor planet, number 15, Eunomia. It's 8th magnitude and its opposition is in a week on the 14th in the constellation Auriga. And the transit altitude is 89 degrees, so it cannot get much higher than that. Then the moon goes near the ecliptic and it passes Mars on the 17th at 2:30 a.m., only 17 arc minutes from the limb. So that's really close, rarely gets that close. But it's in the morning, so you would have to get up on the 17th for that. And then will be new moon at the end of the year, and by January 1st, it will be a really beautiful crescent. And 2 days later, on January 3rd, it will be near Venus, and that's always nice when those moon and Venus is close together. If you like to watch meteors, don't forget the 13th is the maximum of the Geminids, and they are visible. It just rises a little bit after the end of twilight, so it's better late in the evening than in the early evening. Best on the nights of the 13th. And we already had our earliest sunset, so they are getting later again, but the solstice is still 2 weeks away on the 21st. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Dr. Kakash is from the Lunar and Planetary Lab, and he, in addition to giving the report here verbally, he posts it on our website so that if you missed one of those dates and want to recheck it, you can always go to the website at tucsonastronomy.org and relocate the date there. So, okay, I think we are ready to adjourn our member meeting tonight for our visitors. And so we're going to say goodbye to our people on Facebook tonight. Thank you for joining us. On YouTube, I'm sorry. Yes, they're on YouTube tonight. And we thank those people for joining us, and we'll be here the first Friday of every month at 6:30. And so please come back again.